Is the market starting to feel like a casino and no one wants to say it out loud? When Warren Buffett, at 95, leans in with that concern, it lands differently. Something is shifting. Fast money, rising bets, shorter thinking, but also more access, more liquidity, more momentum. That tension is where it gets dangerous. Because if this isn't just noise, if it's a turning point, then most people won't see it until it's already too late. Listen closely.
I've compared the markets to a church with a casino attached, and people can move between the church and casino, and I would say there are more people in the church and more people in the casino, but the casino's gotten very attractive to people. If you're buying one-day options or selling them, I mean, that's not investing, it's not speculating, it's gambling, just totally. There's nobody that can explain why they're buying an option for one day. So we've never had people in a more gambling mood than now. But that doesn't mean that investing is terrible. It does mean that prices for an awful lot of things will look very silly. We have lots more regulation and everything now, but people spend their time figuring out how to get around the rules rather than follow the rules. That's just a challenge.
This isn't just noise anymore. It's confirmation. When Warren Buffett, arguably the clearest mind in markets, looks at a $380 to $400 trillion system and starts questioning what it's becoming, you have to pay attention. Not because he's panicking, but because even he sees something shifting beneath the surface. Is it speculation taking over, or the early stages of a new financial structure forming? That's where it gets uncomfortable. Because while some call it a casino, others are quietly positioning. And here's the part most people miss. The transition doesn't announce itself. It happens while opinions are still divided. Even voices like Hunter Horsley, Bitwise CEO, are starting to point in that direction. So the real question is, are you watching the noise or the shift? Listen closely.
There's now a new option on the menu. It's called Bitcoin. It's worth $2 trillion. There's $400 trillion trying to figure out how to move into the future in the best way for their objectives. And by the way, the $400 trillion is growing.
Nearly $400 trillion in global money and assets searching for a home. And Bitcoin still sits around $2 trillion. That gap isn't just a number. It's tension. Some see hype, others see a repricing just getting started. Because if even a fraction of that capital shifts, the impact isn't gradual, it's violent. This is what Samson Mow has been quietly pointing to, a scenario most dismiss until it's already underway. But here's the question. Does the market absorb that flow, or does it transform because of it? That uncertainty is where the opportunity and the risk collide. Before we get into Samson's thesis, listen closely to Jack Mallers.
Where do you see the price of Bitcoin heading?
Higher.
How much higher?
A lot higher. My general framework from the highest level is human beings collectively, we own about $900 trillion worth of stuff. That's equities, the things behind us, real estate, precious metals, fine art, all of the things that we own. Half of that we're using as a savings account. We're owning the portfolio of companies or the art or the house to actually try and persist wealth into the future. I think Bitcoin's going after that market. It's going after a market of $400 to $500 trillion worth, and right now it's $2.5 trillion. So I think in purchasing power terms, Bitcoin can go up 100 to 200 times more from here.
$200,000 Bitcoin? After touching $126,000, it no longer sounds extreme. Yet it still feels too easy. Momentum is building, narratives are shifting, and even top US leadership is leaning in. Is this acceleration or the calm before something bigger? Listen closely.
And when it comes to crypto, I think the last several years have made it clear that we're talking about genuine, ground-up innovation, one that's already improving the well-being of tens of millions of our fellow citizens. I believe it's 50 million Americans own Bitcoin, and I believe that's going to be 100 million before too long.
All of this keeps circling back to what Samson Mow has been consistently signaling. that Bitcoin may be aligning with powerful tailwinds most people are still underestimating. But here's the tension. Are these signals confirmation or just convincing narratives forming at the wrong time? Liquidity, adoption, macro shifts, they all point somewhere, but not everyone agrees on where. That uncertainty is where conviction is tested. Because if this is the early phase, the move won't wait for clarity. And if it's not, the risks are just as real. So before jumping to conclusions, listen closely to how Samson connects the dots.
I think we're long overdue for a big move up.
What has to happen for that to happen?
Just time.
Time.
Everyone is accumulating a massive amount of Bitcoin, right? Saylor has 760,000 something now, right? I don't think there's that much Bitcoin out there that he can keep buying without the price coming up. And the structure of strc lets him buy without any dilution. So it's a very powerful instrument. And then you have Adam's company, BSTR, coming. So just imagine 4 or 5 companies all doing this. Mm-hmm. It's going to go up. And then BlackRock. And now Morgan Stanley wants to compete with BlackRock. Then you throw a country or two into the mix. This is not enough Bitcoin, and you'll have a supply shock. I think this is the greatest trick that the market is playing on people, that there's so much Bitcoin that it's always going to be low. But that's just not true. Bitcoin is so scarce that people can't fathom how scarce it is. There's only 21 million units of this. And again, this is like something that the masses don't understand, the concept of a finite asset. They're familiar with assets that are kind of scarce, but the total number is unknown, right? You don't know how much gold there is. You don't know how much silver there is. You have estimates. You don't know how much oil there is, but you think oil is scarce. You know, it's going to run out eventually. So, you know, they kind of have a vague concept of scarcity, but they don't understand absolute scarcity, which is what Bitcoin is. And when you hit that limit, when there is no free float on the exchanges, when the traders that are, you know, using Bitcoin as this kind of free floating asset to, you know, market make or provide liquidity to the market, when that dries up, then Bitcoin will just run.
Why would that dry up? Because if it's so volatile, then it's an interesting thing to trade.
Because there's only 21 million Bitcoin.
But they're trading the derivatives. They're not.
I think there's both. Mm-hmm. Derivatives definitely will damp it or amplify it, but they need spot Bitcoin. So that we know there are 2 to 3 million BTC on exchanges, kind of as this free float. And that free float will be eroded. It's just a question of when.
You reminded me of something. So there are a few times when I talk about Bitcoin and I have comments saying that, oh, don't listen to her, she's just pumping her bag. And I'm just flattered because if you think I can pump Bitcoin, I'm like, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I assume people would say the same thing about you talking about Bitcoin.
I haven't heard that, but you know, I'm sure I haven't seen it. The Bitcoin is the only thing where it doesn't matter if you pump your bag or not, because it is sort of preordained where Bitcoin is going, and Bitcoin is the best asset too. So it's like, do I really need to pump my bag? It kind of sells itself. Mm-hmm. Whereas everything else, they do need to pump their bags. They need a marketing team. Like, this is one of the big differentiators from Bitcoin and Ethereum, which was Ethereum launched with a 30-person marketing team. I don't think people know that. But if you go back in time and you look at their pitch, like the World Computer, it's all slick branding and graphics. And they like trademark their logo. It's all a very well-packaged thing to sell to somebody. But every altcoin is, you know, it was made to be sold to get Bitcoin. Like, one thing I think people should be worrying about, and maybe they are, is what happens to your work in the future with AI. And I think the answer is Bitcoin, right? If you have an asset, you can leverage the asset. You can borrow against it, right? If there's no more work, if work becomes a commodity because a computer can do it, then what value do you bring? So you need to accumulate an asset now, right? If you go back to the boomer age, what is the asset? You have the productive asset of real estate. I can buy a house, not the one I'm living in, and I can rent out that house, right? And I get some income. Well, with Bitcoin, you can also use it too, right? You can borrow against it, you can sell options, you can do all sorts of things with it. But you have to think, if the world is moving away from work being valuable, then there's no more valuable skill than having an asset. It's not a skill, but it's like a important thing now. Not that you know how to do something, but you have an asset.
Talking about this, there's this narrative that says Bitcoin is not built for human, it's for AI.
I'm pretty sure it's for humans.
It's not because, AI agents, do transactions in very micro amount and a lot of...
That doesn't matter. You can say Bitcoin is for AIs, but the reason for that is because it's permissionless. The AI is not going to get a credit card, right? The AI is going to use your credit card. You're going to set up a credit card account because AIs don't get credit cards, right? I don't think they will get credit cards. AIs are not going to have bank accounts, right? It'll be your bank account that you delegate access to. The only thing the AI can really have is a Bitcoin wallet and maybe stable coins. The speed and size of the transaction doesn't matter. If you could have some digital bank account or digital account, you can have small accounts, small transactions too. But it's the fact that Bitcoin is permissionless that's what they'll use because that's the only thing they can use.
So it's just a bonus. It's not made for AI. It just happens to be perfect for AI.
Yes. But, everyone has to spin it somehow with a new narrative. So they say, oh, crypto's for AI. It's just a new angle that people are spinning, just like the world computer or something else. But usually the reality is simpler than that.
I don't know. What's the best way to describe it? You talk about Bitcoin all the time.
There's no simple...
It's hard.
There's no simple one-shot answer. Like, I'll give you two statements.
Okay.
Bitcoin is digital gold, which means it is an asset that doesn't have a physical form. The second one I would say is Bitcoin is information because it's just information. Just like, why can I have no counterparty risk? Because it's just information I send around the world, right? I don't need a counterparty to store information. It's just ones and zeros. So I think there's no one statement that encapsulates Bitcoin, but you can take these two and you can get pretty far with these two in terms of what it means and the impact on the world.
So if I really want to help you with this nation state adoption, what could I do?
I think what you're doing now, just educate people about Bitcoin and build a community. And if you have connections, engage with the government. We're happy to help too, but you can also engage without us. Like, we go where we're called and people ask for our help because we're sort of an expert group, right? And we can speak to our experience. We can speak to what other countries are doing, but you don't need us. You can do it fine on your own. But we're happy to help wherever we can help.